Good morning. It is Sunday, January 26, 2025. And let me go on and tell you, we have another great lesson before us this morning. The first title of the lesson says commitment. And then the title under that one says God's commitment to an unfaithful bride. That's deep right there. God's commitment to an unfaithful bride. The focal verses are coming out of Hosea 1 through 11. The aim for change says that by the end of this lesson, we will explore how God commanded Hosea to marry an unfaithful woman as a model for his love for Israel, reflect on God's desire for the restoration of broken relationships, and demonstrate faithfulness to God through a commitment to maintain faithful relationship with other people. Now that's pretty deep right there. You know, the one thing that we don't want to do is try to mend fences. I'm gonna say it that way, where it says to maintain faithful relationship with other people. It can be hard sometimes, but we know they always say that life is never easy. There is always going to be something that will challenge you. So as we look at this aim for change and we talk about explore, reflect, demonstrate, we're gonna look into, we're gonna think about, and we're gonna do it. Because the one thing about the lessons that are being given to us in the Word of God, if we get these lessons, we discuss these lessons, and we don't apply these lessons, how are they going to help us moving forward? So application has to be attached to His Word. Does anybody have anything to say over the aim for change before we get further into this Sunday school lesson? All right, the in focus says, Cheryl pushed her cart through the produce section, trying to hurry. She had to be at Justin's soccer game in half an hour. Wheeling into the cereal aisle, Cheryl suddenly stopped and quickly turned around. Darlene, she muttered, what was her sister doing in this part of town? Cheryl left her cart and darted to the restroom, determined not to be forced into a confrontation. Later at home, Cheryl thought about what had happened in the grocery store. That was so silly, she said out loud. When had their little misunderstanding turned into this colossal issue? She had felt ridiculous hiding in the bathroom to avoid her sister. Cheryl thought about what she had read in her devotional that morning. It talked about being the first one to take a step toward reconciliation in a relationship, even if you felt you had been the one wronged. God, please help me to want to forgive Darlene, she prayed, and please forgive me for not committing to humble myself enough to be the one to take the first step. God is a God of relationships. He is also a God of reconciliation. When you commit to restoring a broken relationship, what are some key factors you find helpful in fostering reconciliation? Now that's a deep question, isn't it? When you commit to restoring a broken relationship, what are some key factors you find helpful in fostering reconciliation? Well, you know, first thing you got to do, you're going to actually have to talk to that person. So, because in order to start the reconciliation process, there's going to have to be some communication that has to take place. And in order for that communication to take place, you can't run and hide when you see them. Now, I'm going to say it like this, and you don't have to raise your hand, you don't have to do anything. But have there ever been a time when you've been out somewhere in public and you saw someone that you just didn't care for, and because of the fact that you saw them before they saw you, you went down a different aisle or turned around and went the other way just so you didn't have to have any type of conversation with them? Oh, I know, and I'm gonna say it like this, we've all done it. And notice I said we've all done it. We have. But the one thing about it is that in looking at this lesson on commitment, that's the one thing that you got to make sure that you are looking at trying to change. Amen. Looking at trying to change is that broken relationship. Now, the one thing about broken relationships, as you know, is that they don't change overnight. It's going to take some time. And as we get further into this Sunday school lesson out of the book of Hosea, we're going to find out that it is going to take some time for these broken relationships to start to become unbroken, if you will. But it's going to take some time. Anybody want to say anything on the in focus before we go further into this Sunday school lesson? All right, the keep in mind says, the beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea, and the Lord said unto Hosea, go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. Hosea 1 and 2. That's the King James Version. New Living Translation says, when the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, go and marry a prostitute, so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods. Hosea 1 and 2. Boy, this is an ugly picture being painted right about now. Yeah, he want to make sure you understand what he's saying, and in your mind's eye, he wants you to see what he's talking about, because that's an ugly picture. Deke, you ready? All right.
Hosea 1 through 11. The word of the Lord that came unto Hosea, the son of Bereah, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, who conceived and bare him a son. And the Lord said unto him, call his name Jezreel, and yet for a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Judah, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. And it came to pass at that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. And she conceived again and bare his daughter, and God said unto him, call her name Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and I will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by the bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now when she had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then God said, call his name Lo-Lami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel.
Thank you, Dee. You had some names in there. Thank you, sir. The people, places, and times. Hosea, son of Beri, was likely a native of northern kingdom Israel. He lived about the middle of the 8th century BC, and his ministry appears to have begun around the same time as the prophet Amos. Hosea ministered for almost 40 years, prophesying throughout the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah of Judah, and Jeroboam II of Israel. Not much is known about Hosea outside of what we learn about him in the book which bears his name, the covenant. In ancient times, cutting a covenant was essential to life. Parties would covenant together for many reasons: to protect their land or possessions, to show honor or earnestness in a business deal, to seal a marriage arrangement, and so forth. All people in biblical times understood how a covenant worked. It was more than just a contract, it was a pledge of loyalty and the giving of your entire life. God's covenant with Israel, given to Moses on Mount Sinai, was well known to the people of Israel. It contained very specific blessings and curses, each tied to a specific point of the law of Moses. If they disobeyed a specific law, God would curse them with a specific curse. If they obeyed a specific law, God would bless them in a specific way. The background. The valley of Jezreel was located in an area of the central Israel that is today often called Megiddo. During the ministry of the prophet Elijah, Jezreel came to be a significant place. It was the place of Naboth's vineyard, which was coveted by King Ahab. Naboth refused to sell his vineyard to Ahab, so Ahab's queen Jezebel had Naboth murdered. The prophet Elijah reprimanded Ahab and Jezebel and foretold that their demise would take place on the very same land they had schemed to acquire. Later, King Jehu did indeed defeat Ahab at Jezreel and began to rid the land of the blatant idolatry brought to the nation by Jezebel. By the time of Hosea, the third generation of Jehu's descendants, Jeroboam II was on the throne. At this time, Israel appeared to be prosperous, vigorous, and strong. They had won back much of the territory previously stolen by their enemies. The house of Jeroboam II was in power during the first 3 chapters of the book of Hosea. After that, we see a sad, quick succession of 6 kings in 25 years. God instructed Hosea to prophesy that the strength of the northern kingdom would again be defeated by Jezreel, this time by the brutal Assyrians, because of the Israelites' continual desertion of God and turning to idolatry. They took their military victories for granted and worshiped the false gods of Baal, Asherah, and Molech. Now, when you look at the people, places, and times and the background, and we're looking at the fact that Hosea is the one that God is using with this commitment and this covenant, you know, Hosea is a very obedient man, because with the instructions that God is getting ready to give Hosea, I don't know of too many people that would set out to marry someone that is the type of person that Gomer is in this lesson. And as you look at what has taken place, once again, hard-headedness is what's causing what's going on. They know that the law of Moses, they know that they're not supposed to be practicing idolatry. They know that they're not supposed to be worshiping the false gods of Baal, Asherah, and Molech, but yet they are doing it. And the one thing about it is that we know for a fact that there are consequences for your actions. And in this case, there are consequences for their actions. Does anybody want to say anything on the people, places, and time before we get further into this Sunday school lesson this morning? All right, the other glances we're going to be going to discuss this morning are the prophet's challenge, the prophet's children, and the prophet's promise. So if we're looking at this, we can really talk about the prophet, and that prophet is Hosea. Now, as we talk about Hosea, like I said, Hosea is a good one, y'all. He a good one. The prophet's challenge. The prophet would often use demonstrative examples of imagery to convey a message to the people. In the book of Hosea, the life of the prophet himself serves as the example of God's message to the people of Israel and Judah. When God speaks his word through the prophet Hosea, he gives him a startling command: marry an adulterous woman. I'm going to stop right there. As I was studying this, it says, marry a prostitute. Now, it's one thing not to know that they're a prostitute, but here you are being specifically told to marry a prostitute. And as given those instructions, it says he's given the startling command, marry an adulterous woman. Hosea obeys and marries a woman named Gomer. There is some debate on whether Gomer had adulterous tendencies or if she was actually practicing prostitution when Hosea married her. But regardless, she was known to be sexually unfaithful. She was not the woman of one man. She was the woman of many men. And the one thing about it is, that's why I say Hosea was an obedient man, because of the fact that the woman that I'm marrying, where in the vows it tells you the two shall become one, the two ain't becoming one because Gomer going out there and seeing this one, and that one over there too. So in doing this, the faithfulness of God and the obedience of God that Hosea is possessing is some great characteristics of a good example. God is painting a picture, y'all, and he painting a picture to where, you know what, I'm going to show you exactly what y'all have done. So as I use Hosea to show y'all what y'all have done, y'all going to see the error of y'all's ways. God asked Hosea to be a living example to vividly point out the unfaithfulness of his people. By their continued and blatant idolatry, God's people had committed adultery, breaking the covenant relationship they had with him. So not only is Hosea being this example, and God is using Hosea and his marriage to Gomer as a means of saying Hosea and his marriage to Gomer is a representation of his people and their marriage to God, and showing that you cheating on me. And that's pretty much when you think about it, if you are married and you messing with somebody that's not your mate, that's called cheating. We're going to keep it simple. It's called cheating. And the people have been cheating on God. And God's saying, I ain't down with it. I don't like it. Y'all wrong, and you shouldn't be doing this. As much as I've done for you all down through the years, I have shown you time and time again who I am and what I can do for you. But yet, in spite of everything I keep showing you, you want to go and worship these false gods. Well, guess what? There are consequences for your actions. Does anybody want to say anything on the prophet's challenge? Can y'all imagine that being a challenge? Knowing that you want to get married, and instead of you being able to marry your soulmate, you got to marry a prostitute. That had to be hard. But in his faithfulness to God, he is being obedient. Does anybody want to say anything on the prophet's challenge before we go down to the prophet's children? Now, this boy had to be real challenging right here, boy. Yes, he was a very good man, because a lot of men wouldn't stand for this. Hosea obeys God and marries Gomer. Just as God had once made a binding covenant with the people of Israel, Hosea is now bound by a covenant to Gomer. And just as God loves his people, Hosea loves his wife. She soon bears a son whom God instructs to be named Jezreel. As noted above, Jezreel was the name of a place of significance in Israel's history and means God scatters. By instructing Hosea to name his son this, God sends a clear message to the Israelite that judgment is coming. Now, you know, it's funny how God is continuing to have to send the same group of people messages about judgment coming. You saw what your ancestors went through. They've been telling you what they went through. You saw them go through exile. You saw God allow them to be in exile. You watched this. Then you watch God bring them out of exile. How many times do you have to keep doing something to recognize that it's not going to come out pretty? I think this is a prime example of the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing and you expecting a different result, It is not going to happen. God said what he meant what he said, and if you don't follow it, there are consequences for you not following his word. Hosea continues to proclaim God's warning, but the Israelites pay no attention. Can y'all imagine that? Hosea constantly, y'all know what y'all doing. God is not pleased with what you're doing. God is not pleased with the lifestyle that you're living. God is not pleased with the fact that you're worshiping other gods. God is not pleased with any of that. Can you imagine Hosea constantly saying, and they said, go on somewhere, Hosea. We don't want to hear that. Because exactly, they didn't want to listen to him either, did they? But God told them what to do. They did what God said, and God took care of them. Just like he is telling them, God ain't happy with y'all. Y'all can't keep doing this. But they turned a deaf ear to what Hosea was saying to them. Soon, Gomer bears a daughter. As instructed by God, Hosea names the little girl Loruhamah, which means not loved or not pitied. This is a stronger warning than the first, clearly conveying that if Israel continues in their idolatry, God will no longer love nor forgive them. Let me stop right there. God will no longer love nor forgive them. That's a powerful statement right there. Because I don't think anybody want God to stop loving them. And the way God has provided for them and given them things that they did not deserve or earn, but yet even in spite of all of that, you still are not doing what you are supposed to be doing. You are not following his word. You're not being obedient. You're worshiping other gods. You're doing everything that you were told not to do. And when you talk about Moses and Moses' law, if you recall, God gave Moses the 10 commandments. And one of those commandments says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And here y'all are worshiping other gods. Do you not think that with you breaking the command, that God is not going to punish you for breaking that command? I don't want God to keep punishing me when he's telling me what I should be doing. And if I do what I'm supposed to do, he going to bless me rather than punish me. I think I'd rather be blessed than punished. I don't know about anybody else, but I think I choose the blessing over a punishment. God no longer love nor forgive them. Israel still refuses to listen. Talk about some hard-headed people. Their worship of other gods reveals a flagrant and wanton disregard for God's love, which ultimately leads to their alienation from him. So this is how you want to treat me, and I've been taking care of you. Let me show you better than I can tell you now. Got something for you. After she weaned Lurama, Gomer gives birth to another son. I'm gonna stop right there. So when it talks about how Gomer weaned Lurama off, when I told you this has been going on for a while, because when I was studying this, it said when Gomer weaned Lurama off, that was about a 3-year week. She was about 3 years old. So if you can imagine, 3 years between them, that this stuff has been going on, and Hosea telling them, God said, y'all need to quit worshiping these other gods, and y'all need to change what y'all doing, because if you don't change what you're doing, God gonna punish you. And you still telling this man, Hosea, get somewhere and sit down. After she weans Lurama, Gomer gives birth to another son. His God-given name is Lorami, which means not my people. Sadly, this child's name sums up the break in the covenant relationship between God and his people that he had warned would come. God's heart still longed for his people, but they would not turn back to him. Now, you know, that had to be hard on God. God's heart aches for us because of the fact that when I'm telling you, don't do this, he's telling you, don't make me whoop you. That's what he's saying. Don't make me do it. I don't want to have to beat you. But if you keep doing what you're doing, you asking for me to beat you. Y'all think about as parents when you were told not to do something. And your parent would tell you, don't make me whoop you. Okay, you're going to get a whooping. I told you once. How many times has God told them over and over and over again, thou shalt have no other gods before me? Okay, I told you that. Now I'm going to send my prophet Hosea. And Jose gonna give you a warning. And he gonna tell you that I'm not pleased with what you're doing. And Jose gonna do it in the form of showing you through the life that I'm making Jose live. So Jose is living what God's message out right before their eyes. That, you know, in going through all of this, those people probably knew Gomer. And some of these people that Jose talking to probably been with Gomer. So they know that Gomer, Jose's wife, is a prostitute. And here it is, Jose's still out there trying to tell you. And if you look at the names, because, you know, back then, there was something in a name. Yeah, you know, what's in the name? There was a message in the name. And when you look at each name that God instructed Jose to give those children, it was a message in those names that was geared to the people, that if you don't listen to what Jose telling you, because Jose is my messenger talking to you, if you don't listen, there are going to be consequences for you not listening. Does anybody want to say anything on the prophet's children? Did you pick up the mic like you wanted to say something?
Well, I guess I don't.
Go on and say it.
You know, it's kind of like us as parents. You know, sometimes we have to punish our children. We don't want to, but they constantly doing something we told them not to do. We have to punish them.
Yes, we
That's
do.
like God has to punish us, and we
Exactly.
constantly disobedient to Him. It's the same thing.
It truly is.
Although His punishment is.
What you said. Mm-hmm. Like, ooh, Lord, please don't whoop me.
But I think about now in modern times, God keeps showing us not to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have He brought before us? And we constantly doing what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we have more distraction now. We say the internet is good because we can do certain things. Cell phones and all that stuff is bad. Look at all these pop-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So we have so much distraction that I don't know how to put it, and I've been struggling with this for a while. It's like it's not hard to live what God said, live by His word, but we have so many. TV is a distraction. I don't know what their distraction was during that time,
Mm-hmm.
but to bring it up to modern days, look at us now.
You know what, Wanda, you brought, you know, when you were saying that, you made me think about back in the day, y'all, and let's just look at on Sunday. When we were growing up, there were no stores open on Sunday until after church.
Open at 12 and close at 6.
Well, exactly. And then when you think about it, we didn't have cell phones, but we got what word out that needed to be out. So we didn't have those distractions. And so when you think about all those things, you know, and you know, the kids would say, well, that was back then. It was a simpler time, and we didn't have all this confusion and all this stuff that y'all having now, because we had 3 channels. We didn't have all of these other stuff. We had 3, 9, and 12 that went off. And then the message came on, it's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Because by that time, you needed to be in the house. And it was a simpler time back then, and it was a lot less problems back then. But, you know, everybody want to talk about technology. Technology has its place in certain things, but in other ways, it is not helping the children to get what they need. Because of the fact that, yeah, I know that we got the Bible apps. Yeah, we do. But do you have it on your phone? Why you say that? Let's just be real. Everybody don't have it on their phone. Kim. You want to hear.
So we know based on what we see in the Bible that we're getting close to the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
So as Wanda said, we have more distractions, but could it be that God is wanting us to be closer to Him? Because to avoid those distractions, we got to pray more.
Exactly.
We got to talk to Him more.
Exactly.
We got to get in the Word more.
Exactly. So what you're saying, cuz, is that we need to disconnect from some of this stuff in order to connect a little bit stronger and a little bit tighter with God.
I think His message to us now is, His warning is that we're close to the end of time. So I'm warning you, just like He did here. He's warning us to get closer to Him, to call on Him more, to talk to Him more. And yet, we still use the internet for bad things. So we're disobedient and we're ignoring His instructions.
Well said, cuz. So in other words, so instead of posting your what problem is going on, pray. Post it with Jesus in prayer. Well, that sounds like a shirt for pastor, because you know he always trying to think of them good little lines. Anybody else want to say anything on the prophet's children before we go to the prophet's promise? All right. Though the Israelites persist in their wicked ways, God foresees a time when his people would repent and return to him. See, God, you know what? God is so optimistic when it comes to his children. He foresees a time when his people would repent and return to him. Because the one thing about it is that, as Kim has already said, he is showing us that this is the time of his coming. The signs of the times is showing. If you look at the word and you see what's going on in the world, you see that it's closer than you think. And the one thing that you hear people say, especially preachers, if you don't know him, you better get to know him. And we know that tomorrow is not promised. And that's why they tell you, if you don't know him today, don't wait till tomorrow to get to know him. Go on and get to know him today, so that when he does return, you can return with him, because you only have two options. I'll just leave it like that. It's only two options. One is good and one is not so good. Well, one is good and one is bad. Ain't gonna say it's not so good, it's bad.
It's terrible.
It is what you said. Very, 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 very terrible. And I'm not going. In his great mercy and love, God reveals that their punishment would only be for a time. He has a plan for renewal and blessing. Let me stop right there. So even with God using Gomer and Jose and this relationship that they have, this marriage that they have, and even in the midst of the marriage, can you imagine? You got a faithful spouse and an unfaithful spouse. And in the midst of the unfaithful spouse, now y'all know, excuse me, that the children that Gomer are having, all of them ain't Jose's. Jose taking care of other men's children in the midst of this.
John's children.
They are John's children, exactly. So in the midst of this, not only is Jose being faithful to an unfaithful wife, he's also taking care of children that he did not father. And all of this is because of the fact that God has instructed him to marry this prostitute. And the fact that, as he put it, he said, you're going to have children of whoredoms.
So, back in he told them that the children were going to be from the
Johns, like you said. All these men that she's sleeping with going to be impregnating Gomer, but Jose going to be taking care of the kids. And the thing about it is that even in the midst of all of that, and he says about the prophet's promise, he says that God foresees a time when his people will repent and return to him. In his great mercy and love, God reveals that their punishment would only be for a time. He has a plan for renewal and blessing. God, through Hosea, tells the people of Israel that one day they will be restored to God, and in the very place where he had said, you are not my people, they would be called sons of God. Now think about that, y'all. Y'all have done all these things, gone against God. And even in the midst of all that you've gone against God, I'm going to have to punish you because you've done what I told you not to do. But even though I punish you, God is letting you know I still love you. But when you don't do what you're supposed to do, you got to get punished. And in the very place that I punish you, I'm going to also show you that love again in that very place. Y'all think about that as parents. When you had to punish that child. You remember times where you had to go in your room after you punished that child because it broke your heart because you had to punish your baby. And even when you heard your parents tell you, it's going to hurt me more than it hurt you. I would say, if it's going to hurt you, I don't want you to hurt. Just don't do it. It didn't work, but it was worth a try. And because of that, when you look at God, can y'all imagine God being heartbroken because these are the people that I have brought out of bondage. These are the people that I have done everything. I have provided for them time and time again. Not just them, but their fathers, their grandfathers, their families that goes back generations. But here you are. You want to go against my word and my instructions. Well, you know, I can't just let it go. You're going to have to be punished. So here I am. I got to punish you. And y'all think about that as parents. After you had to punish your child, and it's been a little time, and you go on in and you go check on them, you go into the very same place that you gave them that punishment. If you gave them that whooping in their bedroom, now you going in that bedroom to check on your baby. Just like God did when he came back to the same place where he told them, "You're not my people." Same place to come back to them and say, "You are the sons of God," because of his promise. This is in great contrast to verse 2, where the people of Israel are called children of whoredoms. So in that same place where he called them that, now he calling them sons of God. To let you know that even though you've done what you did, and I had to punish you, I still love you. God will not only restore his covenant with Israel, but he promises that Israel and Judah will someday be reunited into one nation. Though we are not told the eventual outcome of Hosea and Gomer's marriage, we can clearly see the promise of blessings and joy that result when the reconciliation takes place between God and his chosen people. Now, we don't know if Gomer and Hosea stayed married, had more children. We don't know. We don't know if Gomer gave up her lifestyle. All we know is that Hosea did what God told him to do, and for that reason, in the midst of it, God fulfilled the promise of once again calling them the sons of God. So does anybody have anything to say over the prophet's promise? All right, before we bring this lesson to a close, let's go to liberating lesson. Liberating lesson. Unfaithfulness in relationships lead to brokenness and alienation. The tragedy of divorce, the ugliness of a breach between lifelong friends, or the pain of separation between siblings or other family members are all too common. Yet God longs to bring reconciliation to those relationships. He also desires for believers to develop empathy and compassion for others who have been hurt in relationships. When we experience restoration and forgiveness in our relationship with God, we can learn to extend the same grace to others. Let me stop right there. Now, if you want God to extend that forgiveness in that relationship with you and him, how come you can't do the same with someone else? Because the one thing about it is, what if God treated you the way you're treating somebody else? You wouldn't like it. You would not like it. So that's the one thing that we've got to keep in mind. If we can be hard, it can be hard to extend grace when we have unresolved issues in our own lives from past relationships. Many who are unaware of the significance of the hurt and pain they have incurred from these relationships have become toxic in their current interaction with others. Let me stop right there. You know, when I was looking at that, some people may not even realize that they've become toxic because of past relationships, and don't understand why they may treat a person the way they treat them or talk to them the way they talk to them, and don't recognize that what you are doing and how you are reacting and responding is not from anything that the person that you are talking to has done to you. It's because of some unresolved issues in your past that you are allowing to come out against someone that didn't do it. And I'm sure that you've been in situations where someone has taken something out on you, and it's like, wait a minute, what just happened? And because I can recall having a student snap on the whole class. She came in late, and when I said good morning, she rolled her eyes and turned her head, and classmates said something to her. She just snappy. And I told my class, I said, class, I'll be right back. I said, come on. And I told her, let me tell you something right now. I don't know who did it, but we didn't do it. And you're not going to come up in here and take it out on us like we did. If you need to walk around the building and get yourself together, you go walk. But when you come back in my class, don't come back in the way you just came in my class. And she said, wow, you know, I'm having, I said, you are having, but we didn't do it. And don't come back in here and take it out on us. Now, the one thing about it, when you got unresolved issues, sometimes you're not aware that you just snapped at somebody that didn't do anything to you. And so therefore, we may have to, once again, I said, this is about application. This may be a time that you may need to do some self-examination to see if there are some things still taking up residency within you that needs to be evicted. The results in more unhappy marriages and families, and ultimately it affects society overall. As the foundation of society, the family is in need of a serious repair. Wow. The family is in need of a serious repair. In order to do the repairing, got to get some toxic stuff cleaned out. Application for activation. Knowing that God is a God of reconciliation means we can be optimistic and hopeful even during trying circumstances of a difficult or broken relationship. Ask God to show you your part in forgiving or asking for forgiveness. Make a commitment to God that you will do your best to maintain faithfulness in all relationships. You know, Pastor said when he say all relationships, he say all mean all. So therefore, we're going to have to do a little self-examinations and make sure that we are cleaned out what we need to clean out. And if it's not cleaned out, it's time to do some spiritual house cleaning. Before we bring this lesson to a close, if you keep courting trouble, you will soon be married to it. Good lesson.